Welcome back. We're so glad you could join us today for another deep dive. We've got a really fascinating stack of sources to go through today.
Yeah, we have some detailed historical notes and a very comprehensive Wikipedia article to look at.
Right, and they all center around this, well, it's an incredibly rare, roughly 500-year-old academic title. Now, if you're anything like me, you probably have a mental image of what it means to reach the absolute pinnacle of an academic career.
Oh, absolutely.
You picture the tweed jackets, right? The
Yeah.
sprawling libraries, maybe a lifetime tenure at a world-renowned university. But looking through these sources, I discovered a tier of academia so exclusive and so steeped in centuries of history that it requires the literal approval of a monarch.
It's quite the concept to wrap your head around, isn't it? I mean, when you read through the history, it sounds like something pulled straight out of a historical drama.
Right.
A king or queen pointing a sword and declaring someone the ultimate master of a subject. But this is a very real, very tangible part of the modern academic world.
Okay, let's unpack this. Today, our mission is to explore the hidden architecture of academic prestige by looking at the role of the Regius Professor. For those of you listening who might not be familiar with the term, our sources define a Regius Professor as a university professor in the United Kingdom and Ireland who has, or originally had, royal patronage or appointment.
Yeah, and this isn't just your standard promotion to department head. It's a tradition that has miraculously survived since the late 15th century.
Which is just wild to think about.
What's fascinating here is that this is by no means just an honorary certificate you hang on your office wall to look important.
Right, it's a real job.
Exactly. It's a highly sought-after, functioning, everyday role. It's a unique feature of academia in the UK and Ireland, where the current monarch actually appoints the professor. Now, to be clear on the logistics, the monarch isn't just picking names out of a hat.
That would be funny, though.
It would be, but no, this only happens after proper advertisement and rigorous interviews conducted through the offices of the university and the national government. But that final seal of approval, the actual legal decree, that comes directly from the crown.
And because of that royal stamp of approval, the relative rarity of these professorships makes them just intensely prestigious. In fact, reading through the notes, there's this brilliant little quirky naming convention that comes with the territory.
The title drop.
Yes. If you manage to achieve this rank, you are traditionally addressed simply as Regis rather than professor. It's like the ultimate academic trump card. You don't even need to say professor anymore. Just Regis is enough to let everyone in the room know exactly who signed your paperwork.
It immediately sets the individual apart in a crowded field. It signals to everyone in the room, to their peers globally, that this person holds a chair instituted by an English, Scottish, or British monarch. You're no longer just representing your university, you carry the historical weight of the state.
So going through the source text, I really wanted to find out where this all began, and we have to turn the clock all the way back to the year 1497.
Quite a long time ago.
Yeah, exactly. The location is the University of Aberdeen. The monarch making the call is the Scottish King James IV. And the subject of this very first royal academic chair, it was medicine. I found myself wondering, why medicine at that exact moment?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it tells us something profound about human priorities at the dawn of the Renaissance. According to the text we're examining today, Regis chairs are instituted strictly in disciplines judged to be fundamental and for which there is a continuing and significant need.
Fundamental.
Right. So by looking at the oldest chairs, we're essentially looking at a mirror reflecting what society valued most, or perhaps feared most, in that specific era. In 1497, establishing a fundamental, continuous need for the study of medicine makes perfect sense. Life was fragile. Plagues and diseases were existential threats to entire nations. Health and healing were the ultimate baselines for a functioning society.
It's almost like the monarch was looking at the state of the world and saying, we barely understand the human body, and we need the absolute best mind in the kingdom leading that charge.
Precisely.
But the timeline shows things really kicking into high gear about 40 years later. I noticed this massive boom in the source material right around the 1540s at both the University of Cambridge and the University of Oxford. It's like the crown suddenly went on a hiring spree.
It's a fascinating spike. You have to remember the broader historical context of what was happening in the 1540s. Henry VIII was completely restructuring the church and the state. He was breaking away from Rome, establishing the Church of England, or consolidating his own power. To do that successfully, he needed absolute experts in law and theology to back up his political and religious moves.
Yeah.
He needed an intellectual army.
Oh, that makes the specific subjects they chose make so much more sense. Looking at the list the Crown deemed fundamental at that time at Cambridge in 1540, you have Regis chairs created in civil law, divinity, Greek, Hebrew, and physic, which was their term for medicine.
And Oxford saw a nearly identical mirror image.
Right. Civil law around 1540, divinity slightly earlier in 1535, Greek around 1541, and both Hebrew and medicine in 1546.
The alignment between Oxford and Cambridge there is striking, isn't it? It shows a unified, state-sponsored vision of what constituted the bedrock of higher learning in the 16th century. You have medicine and civil law, which govern the physical body and the societal body. Then you have divinity, which governs the soul. And finally, Greek and Hebrew.
Which seem like outliers at first glance.
They do, but those weren't just language classes. They were the essential keys to unlocking ancient texts, philosophy, and critically, the original religious scriptures. If you're going to rewrite the religious rules of your country, you need scholars who can read the source material in its original form. That was a totality of fundamental knowledge for the 1540s.
It paints an incredible picture of a world where mastering ancient languages and understanding theology were viewed with the exact same level of societal urgency as understanding the law or treating a fever. Now, jumping back to the Wikipedia article, it seems for the longest time there was a strict geographical boundary on where these Regis chairs could even exist.
There was a very clear, unwritten rule, yes. Traditionally, Regis chairs existed exclusively within what are known as the 7 ancient universities of the UK and Ireland.
So places like Oxford, Cambridge, St. Andrews.
Exactly, along with Glasgow, Aberdeen, Edinburgh, and Dublin. For centuries, you had to be a part of that specific club to even have a chance at holding a Regis title. The prestige was completely geographically locked.
Which brings us to a really surprising trivia fact for you listening right now. If you had to guess which university currently holds the heavyweight championship title for the highest number of currently active and surviving Regis chairs, your brain probably immediately goes to Oxford or Cambridge. But you'd be wrong. The University of Glasgow currently holds the record. They boast a massive 14 Regis chairs.
14 is a staggering number when you consider how rare these appointments are overall and how difficult it is to prove a continuing and significant need for a new chair.
And Glasgow's list is incredibly diverse, which really shows how they kept adapting to the times. They have Regis chairs in medicine, law, anatomy, zoology, botany, surgery, chemistry, and they even added civil engineering and mechanics back in 1840. It seems like they really cornered the market on royal academic patronage over the centuries.
They certainly capitalized on the Industrial Revolution with that 1840 engineering edition. But while Glasgow's sheer volume is impressive, the geography of these chairs also gives us some truly fascinating historical anomalies. When you look at the history of Trinity College Dublin, for example, the concept of royal patronage gets incredibly complicated.
Oh, this is one of my absolute favorite details in the entire source text. It really highlights how messy history can be.
It perfectly illustrates the friction between academia and geopolitics. Trinity College Dublin has several historically significant Regis chairs. They have a Regis Professor of Physics from around 1637, a Regis Professor of Laws from 1668, as well as chairs in divinity, Greek, and surgery, among others. All of these were instituted by the reigning monarch of the time.
But then the 20th century happens, and there's a massive historical plot twist.
Precisely. Ireland fought for its independence and left the United Kingdom in 1922. The geopolitical landscape entirely fractured and reformed. So because of this hard political separation, the British monarch obviously no longer appoints these professors at Trinity College Dublin.
Right, because the Republic is independent.
Exactly. The royal connection was fundamentally severed in a practical legal sense. And yet, if you look at their faculty today, that prestigious Regis title remains completely intact.
It's such a wild quirk of history. You have a prestigious university sitting in an independent republic, still casually carrying a royal title bestowed centuries ago by a monarchy that no longer has any jurisdiction there. It just goes to show how incredibly sticky these academic traditions are. The political maps can get redrawn, empires can shrink, but apparently once a Regis, always a Regis.
Institutional memory is a powerful force. Academic prestige, once established and recognized globally, is very rarely abandoned voluntarily. The title carries too much historical weight and recognition to just drop it because of border change.
Speaking of people refusing to let go of prestige, we absolutely have to share the story of the University of Edinburgh in 1708. Reading this part of the text, it felt like an academic trying to fake it till he makes it.
It's a rather amusing anecdote from the historical record, and it shows just how coveted the title had become by the 18th century.
Okay, so picture this. The very first professor of Greek at the University of Edinburgh was a man named William Scott, who is known as William Scott Primus. Now, in 1708, this guy was actively being referred to with the incredibly prestigious, honorific Regis Professor. You can imagine him walking around the campus, enjoying the clout, soaking in the respect of his peers. But the text reveals the twist. He never actually managed to secure a grant from the crown.
He essentially just assumed the title without the corresponding royal paperwork. He had the local recognition, his peers were calling him Regis, but he entirely lacked the official royal seal of approval, the actual legal decree from the monarch.
It's an absolute imposter drama in the 18th century Scottish academic scene. I love it. You can just imagine the university politics and the whispers in the faculty lounge. Did they know? Did they care? Now, the text does note that his audacity sort of paved the way because later professors of Greek, as well as humanity, at Edinburgh were eventually appointed by legitimate royal warrant. But William Scott Primus was just out there living the dream without the paperwork to back it up.
It's humorous, but it also proves a point. People recognize the immense cultural capital that came with the word Regis. Even the illusion of royal patronage elevated his standing.
Absolutely. So we've talked about the 1500s, the 1700s, the 1800s. And going through this timeline, you might start thinking that this whole Regis Professor thing is just a dusty relic of the past, something that slowly faded away as universities modernized and democratized. But here's where it gets really interesting.
The timeline shifts dramatically as we enter the modern era. You're right to think it was fading. For a very long time, centuries in fact, there was a significant drought. Very few new Regis chairs were created. The tradition seemed to have essentially capped out, frozen in time.
Right up until October 2012, out of nowhere, it was announced that Queen Elizabeth II would create up to 6 new Regis Professorships. This was done to mark her Diamond Jubilee, celebrating 60 years on the throne. They planned to announce the winners in early 2013, and universities had to submit proposals proving why their specific discipline was fundamentally needed.
And this announcement sent absolute shockwaves through the academic community. Suddenly, universities that had never had a Regis chair, because remember that traditional rule of the 7 ancient universities we talked about, were suddenly given the unprecedented opportunity to bid for this ultimate mark of royal prestige. It opened the floodgates.
And the response must have been overwhelming. Because when the final list was announced in January 2013, the Crown didn't just award 6 new chairs as originally planned. They actually awarded 12 new Regis Professorships.
That number is vital to understand the scale of this modern resurgence. 12 new chairs in a single announcement is likely the largest number ever created in one year. In fact, the source explicitly notes it's more than were created in most entire centuries. It wasn't just a polite nod to the past, it was a complete and total revitalization of the institution.
A historic windfall of academic royalty. And the Crown didn't stop there. This Diamond Jubilee batch was such a massive success that a few years later, in July 2015, another huge wave was announced. This time, it was to mark the Queen's 90th birthday. The actual chairs for this batch were awarded in 2016. And this is where we really see universities completely outside the ancient 7 getting the nod, places like Aston University, Cardiff University, and the University of Liverpool. The geography of prestige totally opened up.
This raises an important question, though. When we look at the specific subjects chosen for these new 2013 and 2016 chairs, what exactly did the Crown and the government determine to be a fundamental need for the 21st century?
Yes, this is the most revealing part of the entire deep dive. Let's look at how the definition of fundamental evolved from the 1540s to the 2010s. Remember, back in the day of Oxford and Cambridge, it was divinity, Greek, Hebrew, civil law. Now looking at the modern list, the sheer leap is staggering. I mean, we go from ancient Greek in 1540 to a Regis Professor of Computer Science at the University of Southampton in 2013.
It highlights a massive shift. Technology and engineering clearly emerged as a primary focus. You have the Crown putting its 500-year-old seal on algorithms and coding. Alongside Southampton, the University of Surrey got one for electronic engineering in 2013. And in the 2016 batch, Queen's University Belfast secured the Regis Professor of Electronics and Computer Engineering.
And it's not just tech. Looking through the source text, there's a whole cluster dedicated to modern medicine, but it's highly specialized. It's not just general physics anymore. The University of London, based at the Institute of Cancer Research, was awarded a Regis Professor of Cancer Research in 2016.
Which is incredibly vital work.
Exactly. In 2013, King's College London received a chair for psychiatry. Newcastle University got a Regis Professor of Aging in 2016. And Glasgow, adding to their massive pile of 14 chairs, got the Regis Professor of Precision Medicine in 2016.
That specificity is key. We're no longer just trying to understand basic anatomy. We're trying to decode the human genome and understand the complexities of mental health and longevity. We also see a stark recognition of global environmental challenges in these modern lists. The University of Reading was awarded a chair in meteorology and climate science in 2013, and Southampton received a Regis Professorship in ocean sciences in 2016.
I think the one that surprised me the most was the shift towards society and industry. The Open University was awarded a Regis Professor of Open Education in 2013. Think about the friction there. You have a 500-year-old royal monarchical tradition being applied to the concept of open education, the democratization and free sharing of learning over the internet. It's a beautiful collision of the old world and the new.
It truly is.
Plus, the University of Warwick got manufacturing in 2016, and the London School of Economics secured the Regis Professor of Economics in 2013.
If you step back and look at that modern list as a whole, you see a map of our current societal anxieties and our greatest ambitions. We're prioritizing our understanding of the changing climate, the aging process of our populations, mental health, cancer, the digital architecture that runs our lives, and the economic engines that drive it all. The Crown is essentially saying, these are the battlegrounds of the 21st century.
So what does this all mean for you as you navigate your own understanding of the world? It means that a list of Regis Professorships isn't just some dry directory of university jobs or a piece of esoteric academic trivia. It's essentially a living, breathing timeline of human academic progress.
I'd completely agree with that framing. It tracks our evolution. From mastering basic anatomy and attempting to decipher ancient languages in the 1400s and 1500s, we've moved to battling climate change, studying the complexities of aging, and pushing the very boundaries of computer science in the 21st century. The mechanism of royal appointment remained exactly the same, a signature from the monarch, but the lens of what is considered fundamental shifted completely to match the desperate needs of the time.
It's an incredible journey. We started this deep dive in 1497 with a single Scottish royal appointment in Aberdeen, hoping to just understand basic medicine and survive the era. And we've traveled all the way to a diverse, modern network of elite academic leaders researching precision medicine, open education, and climate science. It really shows how our oldest institutions can adapt and evolve while still holding on to the weight and the theater of their history.
The Regis Professorship really acts as a bridge. It connects the absolute authority of the monarchy of the past with the cutting-edge innovation of the future. It ensures that the very highest level of prestige is directed toward the problems and disciplines that will define our current century.
I want to thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive today. Exploring the hidden architecture of academic prestige through these sources really gives you a new appreciation for how knowledge is valued, funded, and elevated in our society.
It's been a pleasure to break down the history and the real-world implications of this unique academic tradition.
Before we go, we want to leave you with a final, lingering question to ponder on your own. We've seen the Crown declare disciplines from ancient Greek to modern computer science as fundamental to society. If you had the royal authority today, what completely unprecedented emerging field of study would you decree as a new Regis Professorship for the next century? Think about it. Until next time, keep learning.